Well, good to see you all. Welcome, gentlemen. I've put some slides together for this presentation, and we'll go wherever it goes. I have no particular need to cover everything, but we've broken it down into several categories. So I'm just going to start this screen share. So when I was talking with DC about this, these are some of the categories that we had identified: equipment, track, personnel. And I thought we would mess with track today and see how far that goes. And if room in the time that we have allotted, we can have some other conversations. So we're going to get into track. So let me turn this off for a second. What I'd like you to do is, if you could get a piece of paper and pencil or pen, because there's a thing I'm going to ask you to do. And let me know when you've got it and you're ready to go.
Does it need to be a big piece of paper or
No.
No card
Nope.
will work?
No card will work. Back of an envelope will work.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ready?
Walter's ready. See, Walter's hip to the different reaction icons. I like those. Yeah, down at the bottom, there's to the far right, next to breakout rooms, there's this one called reactions. And if you click that, you have an applause, you have a thumbs up, etc. Yep, there you go, Roger. All right, gentlemen, here we go. So this is the match game. And you'll see there are 12 categories in column left, in the left column, and column B. And you'll look at the first one, rail types, and you just got to match which in column B refers to rail type. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to give you 1 minute and you got to match these. And in 1 minute, I'll come back. So I'm setting the clock timer now, and you have 1 minute to complete the match game. You guys ready?
Play.
Need more time?
Yes, sir.
Confessedly.
Two minutes. Googling is not allowed.
I'm out.
Oh man, the wording in 6 is terrible. That should say secures rail ends to each other with bolts through each end.
Jeez.
You know, Tom, I would have preferred the Jeopardy music. It provides more stress.
Hey, Tom, may I make a suggestion?
After,
After?
unless you needed to do
No, I
this.
was just gonna say, when you're editing this, compress the time we're spending on this. If you can edit out some of our time.
Oh, right. Yeah,
On YouTube, this would drive people crazy.
good point. Will do.
Of course, the question is that how many people are sane watching this?
Trying to do this, huh?
Or at least recognize the mistake of turning it on.
9. This is 9. It's 3.
Ed's ready. Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, that took me a lot longer than I expected.
Yeah.
Especially
Is
since
it-
especially since I worked about a month and a half with Spur rail service. It's like, I should know more than about.
If it helps, I'm ready to give up.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So let's see. We'll go to the next one.
It's a good test. Oh,
Here's the answers. So rail types is number 4. Rail types would be U, strap, or T. You guys got that?
Yep.
1 to 4. Okay. Yeah, that one I got right.
Number 2 is rail parts, which would be column B, number 7. The head, the web, and the foot.
2 to 7. Did not get that one.
Tie plate, B2. Secures rail to tie with spikes.
No.
Number 4, fish plate is B6. It secures the rail ends to each other with bolts through each end.
I got these two reversed.
Number 5, the switch is B1, the section of the turnout that changes direction.
Which is
Good. Got that one.
6, the turnout is B8. It refers to the entire mechanism, the points, stock, closure rails, etc. Ladder track, number 7. Answer is B3, connects a series of turnouts, like for a yard. It got that one. Number 8, trailing points. Or trailing points. B5 proceeds from the frog to the points. Ed missed that one. Did you get that one, Roger?
No.
I'm willing
9.
to bet I got the trailing point and facing point backwards.
Yeah, I did too when I first looked at this. Yep. Number 9, spur is number 12. It's a dead end track. It could be going to an industry. It could be going to a holding track, a team track.
Got that one.
Yay. And A10 scale is B11. You probably got this one, proportion of real size to that of a model, right?
Yeah, that one I got.
11 facing point is B10 from the points to the frog. And I'm sure everybody got 12. Gauge is B9.
I'll be happy to admit I missed that.
Roger, what did you have for the answer?
I forgot. Wait a minute. B12. Did I switch that? No, I forgot to switch it. That's my problem. Initially, it was on scale. And then I
Oh.
forgot about it.
You know,
No
11,
excuses. I didn't get it.
What about 11, DC?
I'd say there are 2 of them there that could be argued, but I'm not going to argue.
Which?
Number 5 and number 11 from
This
A.
number 5, the switch. Argued in what respect?
Question 5 was, you had 1, and I can't, I crossed it out, so I can't see what I had down there. Shit. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Anyways, the facing points also change direction.
Not with that terminology. Facing point has nothing to do with changing direction.
Yeah, it does. If you move them, they change the direction.
Yeah, but if you're still, it could be changing direction, but if it's the facing point, you're still looking at it from the points to the frog. Doesn't matter what direction it's facing. It speaks to the points in relation to the frog. Any other?
I would have to say I'm so used to having switch and turnout being used interchangeably that that's why I slightly got the one switch mix the switch mixed up.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to your point, Ed, people do that with gauge and scale. You know, I say, yeah, I have HO gauge. I say, well, HO gauge is HO gauge. There's N scale, it's still the same gauge. It's just for N scale.
Yeah.
And I think the impetus to put this together has been when I've had people over here, I've been talking to other railroaders and I hear them use these terms, and listening to them, they'd even debate which was which, and well, no, that means that, or no, switch and turnout mean the same. They really don't. And my real driver for this is when I'm working on the layout and I'm working with people, it's so much easier to know the terms, so that when I say to somebody, well, you got to work the track that's facing the, you know, with the facing point, people know. I'm trying to eliminate the confusion or the amount of conversation that needs to occur so that we're all on the same page. When we use the same terminology, it just expedites the conversation.
One problem I've had is between switch and turnout, if you're referring in modeling the motor, the mechanism that works the switch, upon that the switch, and the turnout then is the piece of track that you're working on, is kind of the way I've evolved it.
But you see the switch as different than the turnout, Walter?
Yeah, switch is the, I usually use it in working the switch, meaning the mechanism that that moves the turnout.
Right, that moves the switch.
Yeah.
The turnout, right,
Yeah.
right.
And then you also got electrical switches, which can throw people off also.
Yeah,
Right, right, right. That's when I get into like, well, you talking about the toggle or the push button?
Exactly.
Or are you talking about the turnout?
you forgot.
Could also
the
be
slide
a
switch
transistor. So
Yeah, right.
or the control rod.
All rather confusing, really.
Yeah, you know what? I think there's another term for the fish plate, but I haven't been able to locate that. You know, the and matter of fact, let me just go to the next slide here.
It's also called a tie plate. Well, oh no, I'm sorry, wrong.
the, I
Edit
got
that out. That was wrong.
I got those two backwards. Reversed. Could you show that when you go to the picture? Maybe point
Yeah.
out the difference.
You guys get this, right? The U, the T, and the strap.
Yes.
Okay. And then the parts.
No, this one I personally have not seen or ever categorized intellectually.
See, what I find, again, valuable, even for modeling, when somebody, say like you, Roger's talking about connecting your track, I would say, well, you want to make sure the joiner is secured to the foot. Now you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Or, you know, you need to make sure that you clean not only the head of the rail, but the inside of the head where the drivers are more likely to connect.
right.
Again, it's just, I love it because, you know, we're just on the same wavelength when we're having the conversation.
Right.
Now here's the tie plate and the fish plate.
Ah,
Now, during our time period, I don't remember seeing an image of a tie plate in our time period.
Didn't have them in our time period. That's correct. It would
Right.
just be the spike right to the rail and into the tie.
Now, going back to the parts, I would assume that the strap rail would be the strap would be the head, and I guess the rest of it would be
This here,
yeah,
that's the stringer,
Yeah,
that's the
Oh,
stringer.
yeah.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
it
the
does,
strap.
yeah. So it doesn't have a foot or web on it.
Correct.
where's
And
that
the-
picture taken, Tom?
I don't know. I picked it up off of when you use a PowerPoint, you have an option to get photos off online, and I just type in what I'm looking for, and a bunch of different pictures came up.
Yeah,
wow.
no problem. Curiosity.
Yep,
Be
And
You have
interested
to
to go
show
see
me
it.
how to do that, Tom. That's kind of cool.
yep, yeah. All three of these came off the internet. But the strap rail, there was a hole drilled in the top or through it, and then a bolt driven right into the tie.
Hmm.
Yeah, the problem with strap rail is that those bolt heads got worn out. And then the strap would come loose from the stringer. And there are many instances of them actually curving up and through the floor of passenger cars and impaling people.
Right.
There's actually a drawing of, they call them copperheads. I saw a
Yes.
drawing of one coming up, and of course the ladies are screaming and you see it coming up through the bottom of the car.
Yep. I was looking for that one too, Walter, and I couldn't find it.
Oh. Why
Yeah.
am I- okay.
So that's that. There's the head and foot tie plate. You know, of course, in our period, they wouldn't have been iron. I think they were wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Why do they,
don't,
why do they call them fish plates? Does anybody know the story?
Do
Gotta be a
not.
story.
you know what, Jesus, I was reading it. Oh, man, I forget, Vince. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Well, if you
I-
know, I've seen some pictures of rail from the 1830s and they had a fish belly rail, which was like,
Yeah.
I thought strap rail was the first, but apparently they had this, the bottom of the rail would go like that. So it does kind of look like a guppy. So maybe since it put
Okay.
those together, that just, I'm just totally speculating on why it would call fish plate, because you'd connect guppy rail.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
That is. Yeah, because I thought it was called something else during our period, but maybe it's always been fish plate. They actually, who is it? I think it's either Bar Mills or what's the name? Another company. They actually make these laser cut in wood that you can put on. And I'm going to start. I got a couple of packages of those. I'm going to stick them on for some more detail. And then the point turnouts. Yes.
No, I was saying, because
Ah.
this is one I messed up on.
Yeah, there's more here than what we need. So if you go to the top left where it says front of the turnout, you can see that these two main rails are referred to as the stock rails.
Yeah.
And then as you go in, like you can see stock rails there. And then the closure rails are the two that are on the inside. These are actually the switch. These are the rails that move in a point turnout. And then you have, of course, your flanges. And then I was always curious about what are the rails that look like guardrails on the sides of the frog, and those are wing rails. The guardrail is on the inside of the stock rails. Here they call them check rails. So there's that one. And then we have the, the great stub turnout. Whoops, come on, baby. And you're probably quite familiar with this. The added differences are what they call the approach rails. I've seen them called the fly rails.
Mhm.
And then of course you have your two stock rails and then your closure rails. Interesting here that they call this outside rail the wing rail. I'm like, whoa.
They call
Okay.
the other one the wing rail too.
Yeah. Yep. So
It actually makes more sense to, at least my mind. Because there, that right away, I go to the outside with wings.
yeah. So for me, I'm using the outside rails. I call them the stock rails, and I call these by the frog the wing rails. And of course, the two that are in the center here, I refer to as the closure rails. The other interesting thing I've seen is this spot that's called the head block, where the switch stand is positioned. I've
Yeah.
seen it where there's two head blocks, they call them, that ran to either side of this head block, called head blocks. So there's a little bit of confusion around that, at least for me. But I always refer to the main tie here as the head block, where the switch stand is positioned. And you know, looking at what I did on my layout, I would, boy, if I just knew then what I knew now. Got it. Any
The
questions?
very fact that you have a stub switch, you have stub switches, Tom,
Hmm.
just try to remember that puts you not yards, but miles ahead of other track laying situations for prototypicality of the track.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I'm glad I did that. I'm actually going to go through and fine tune some of these. DC's putting throw rods on his. I mean, if I were to do this again, I'd make this all manual and not working off the DCC throttle.
And so those other,
Now-
if you don't want to call them head blocks, those other three that are just sitting there, they're just going to just slide around as needed. Is that their idea?
Where these over here?
Yeah, those three.
These ties, none of these ties move. They're all fixed. So what you do is you have these bridle rods in here. That's what keeps the track engaged. And so when the switch stand is thrown, the rails move along the top of the ties. And the
Looks-
bridle rods keep them
okay,
engaged.
Okay.
It looks like they're those rectangles. To me, they look like maybe some type of metal that we put there to help reduce the wood tie with that metal going back and forth. Seems like it would wear very, very quickly.
Yeah, they call those chairs.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Right.
Mm.
Right. One modeler I saw, and I think Don Ball confirmed this with me, is when he would do it, he would cut a rail joiner, a metal rail joiner, and affix it or solder it to these ties, and then leave it loose so that when you throw the track and the fly rails move, they have they're not impeded, and they move through slightly the rail joiners, because the joiners are not soldered to the rail, they're soldered to these ties, which of course are what do you call it, those copper.
PC board.
Thank you. Right. I made the mistake of soldering them, so when these throw, you can see the rail is contorted because it's anchored, and I'm like, ooh. So there's something else. If you ever consider doing stubs, there's a couple of great articles around how to secure these with rail joiners so that they move a little bit more freer and they're not so torqued where it puts stress. Because I've had them break away from the solder on these, and that's not fun. Right.
Now, did they still, I know in more modern parlance, anything between the rails is called the gauge side, and everything outside of that is called the field side. Was that sort of the same back then?
FIELD?
Yeah, field, yeah, field, as in,
Oh. Yep, like cotton field or what have you. I never,
Yeah.
that's a new one. Maybe, Ed. So this is called, what did you say? Between here's the gauge and outside here is called the field?
yeah, in between the tracks is called the gauge side. Say,
Gauge side.
like where the guardrails are, the frog is, that's on the gauge side. And like where you would have the
Switch stand?
head block and stuff like that would be on the field side because it's outside the gauge.
I love it. I'm going to add that. That's very good. I'm going to also add chair to the list. See, what do I got next here? Okay. So
Actually, some of the earliest railroads did use chairs too.
did or did not?
Back in the they did use chairs. So that term evolved, I think, a little bit from the way they used it.
Again, to Vince's point about, where did that name come from for fish plate? How did they decide that that was going to be called a chair?
If you look at some old, before they used sleepers, and they would just put it on stone.
Yeah.
It does look like a little chair on the stone that then they put the rail in.
Oh, very good.
My guess is a lot of these terms come from carpentry. I'm not sure if any of us are carpenters, but
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you talk to a mason, somebody building the foundation for houses, they probably use terms like chair.
Yeah, it's a very,
Amazing.
you know what?
I mean, I'm guessing.
That's good, Vince. I got a couple of carpenter buddies. One's a master carpenter, Christopher.
Now
I
you
got-
have to find an intersection between a carpenter and a historian. Then you're covered.
Right.
And maybe a linguist.
well, it also is like with electrical switch. I mean, if you look at electrical switch, it's doing exactly what a turnout is doing, except that it's doing it with electricity, not with rail cars.
Say that again. I missed that, Ed. Say that again.
The thing is that an electrical switch is doing the same thing as a regular switch, but instead they're doing it with electricity, not with rail cars. Because I mean that, whereas a railroad switch changes the direction of where the train is going, electrical switch is changing where the electricity is going.
Oh, yeah. I see. Yeah. Good.
So it's basically the the electrical portion of it was borrowing terminology from railroads, and railroads borrowed terminology from probably from, as Vince mentioned, carpentry or masonry or.
That's right. That makes sense because they had no real terms for track and trains. It had to come from something that was already in place. And you're right, it was mostly carpenters that were doing work, and that makes sense. Interesting. And the next one, of course, is your ladder track. Right. Again, off the internet.
Yeah, I would say those containers don't look period.
Yeah, I know. I know. I was trying to figure out a way to get a photo of my layout in there, but I didn't get it in time. So let me just take these. Nice models. And then, of course, your spur versus siding. And the one on the top left, that's just in my yard over at Chattanooga. DC built the structure and he built the these end
Beautiful.
stoppers. Actually, Paul Dobbs built these cars. I bought them from him. These are Bernie Kopinski's cars, I believe.
No, they're BTS.
Are they?
Yeah, yeah. Paul's cars were BTS.
Okay. And then there's another stub down here with the more modern endpoints. And then this is a siding. This is in Alatoona on the layout. Yeah,
I mean,
when I was-
that's another thing is that maybe Spur, you know, if you look at a Spur from, I guess, a track planning view, I mean, it would look like a spur off of a boot, I guess. That's probably where that term came from.
Or chicken spur. Birds have spurs.
wow, you guys are good. Wow, I gotta write
You can have a
something.
bone spur, that's just a little thing that sticks out, doesn't go anywhere.
Spur, share.
That sounds like we might need to find a linguistic historian. Like exactly where did the name come from?
I'm gonna,
I was just thinking that this would be a great topic for a book because I've never seen anything like this. And you know what the terms, what they meant, and where they came from. That would be a cool book.
at least an article. Yes.
Oh, I think it would be more than just an article though, or a long article.
Good. I will take that on. I'm gonna do that. I think that would be a great one. That's cool. DC, you'll have to co-author it with me. All right, what do we got
Well,
next?
there's also a YouTube channel. I'm trying to think Name Explain, and basically the guy goes through all the history of what a name something came with.
Name Explain.
Name Explain he's a young British guy.
Yeah,
Is it dealing with people's names, or is it dealing with names of something like a fish flake?
He has a series on names, which he started later on, but it's like names of countries.
Okay.
There's one thing that he was talking about, the names of all the squiggly lines that are not in English, you know, for German names where they have the
umlauts.
yes, he actually went through a whole thing on that. Sometimes he does, you know, a lot of times he does countries, sometimes he does I think they did a couple of names of things basically. So I mean there's a lot of names out there, so he's got plenty of he hasn't even probably different categories, but also he probably hasn't even touched on, you know, he's got enough content for a while.
yeah. I'll have to check that out. Thanks for that, Ed.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, maybe that's a possible collaboration also.
Right. Okay.
You know what else people might find interesting, Tom?
What's that?
Is to do a presentation on how you paint and weather your track,
Ooh.
and how you do it. I mean, there could be things other people do it different ways. I've been looking at it online, but how you do it, because I've always admired the way your track looks.
Excellent.
See,
Excellent.
this is why Tom doesn't invite me up as much, because I end up giving him a lot more jobs to do. And
Well-
vice versa.
One thing it's a cousin of the names also is like, I found it really cool. Like, why in America do we drive on the, on the right side instead of the left? And it comes from the rails, which comes from where's your main hand for driving wagons? And then the Brits had a different, they didn't use it from wagon load riding. And there's a joke.
Except the Chicago Northwestern used the English system.
Wow. See, I didn't even know. You got these weird things like that. I just think are cool.
Right. Yeah, when you look
Yeah.
on the wagons, I think the brakes are even on the right side, right, Walter? I remember seeing them pushing that big rod and it's on the right side of the wagon.
Mhm.
And you're saying it's because people were primarily right-handed and they were.
Well, when a wagon, you have to, how they do it when a wagon, you're going to be your strongest hand takes care of driving. So that would also be working the Johnson bar, which means you'd be looking out. Well, that'd be left hand. So if you're working the main controls with your strong hand, then you got to be out that side, which means, yeah, that'd be like American driving, because the roads were taken after the railroads. And that's how you would pass normally. So the engineer could see. And now it's been so long, I can't remember where the British system came in. It was a similar kind of thing, but they had a different thing they started from.
Right.
I think they started with knights and noblemen, which they would get on. They would climb onto the horse on
Left
the
side.
side, or the left side. That would make sense.
And when they joust, it's on the left, but they have their lance on the right arm to go across.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
one thing, if I could just share real quick, the thing about the fish plates and also chairs. I just put fish belly rail in Google. And so there you can see him sitting, in right there, like the chairs.
Ah.
Yeah, they do look like a
That's
chair that you would sit on.
Yeah, and they would just sit, you can sit in there. And then if you're connecting them, that's what I'm guessing the fish plate can. And there you can see that's even a wheel that has like flanges on both sides. They hadn't even got to the one-sided flange yet.
What did you Google to get that?
Fish belly rail,
Ah, nice.
1825. And you can see that setting. There were some other really cool things that you showed. They have some early rail, mainly that now it's just like you'll see some of these stones with the holes drilled for putting the chairs in.
Wow.
Yeah, in Newcastle, Delaware, they actually took those stone chairs and they made a monument out of them by stacking them up. It's just terrible.
That's cool. Thank you. Good. I've got to close at noon today because I got some other things I got to do. But I was thinking for next time we could get into either equipment or personnel, maybe both. So what'd you think? Was this interesting enough to warrant your time today?
Hell yeah.
But for me, yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Good.
One quick question, Tom. When did they start switching over from stub switches over to point switches?
In the might have been as early as the 1870s, but I think definitely by the 80s they were starting to do more, especially when so many lines were destroyed. When they came back to redo them, they were starting to install points, is my understanding. DC, what do you think?
I think 1870s is probably accurate.
Right. That's why the Civil War is such an interesting period, because, I mean, we're flexible between the 1860s and 1890s. And, we don't get into rivet counting. Well, they wouldn't have had a point switch there, or the stub wouldn't have. It's like, as long as you're modeling it and you're having a good time, that's all that matters.
Mhm.
And as opposed to being overly judgmental about how people are building, it's more a matter of how do we support one another to, stay engaged. That's the fun of it for me, and sharing this, you know, it's not like there's a right answer.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, I would assume that they would change the main, the quote mainline switches first into points, and then maybe still having the maybe ladders or something like that still in stubs.
I will tell you that in a town away from me, at least, well, this was like 10 years ago, there was still a stub switch on a siding or a spur that was still there. And I was like, wow. So you're right. You know, if it wasn't needed very much, what have you, I'm sure they didn't even mess with it.
Or it could be the bias of the person responsible. I mean,
That is
maybe,
true.
you know, they figured we can always fix it and make it work, and they understood how it worked, and they didn't want to see it. That's newfangled technology. Why bother?
Right.
100 years, right?
Right. There is that
Yeah.
that natural resistance to change.
So your story within a story. Remember when you gave the tour of your layout, you had this little side stories about you can have, and we put this here because we had this yard master that had no interest in new technology, whatever. You can make a little story out of it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd thought that
Plus
was
it
a
also-
I was one put a steam donkey in because it'd be so cool. I believe around 1840, somebody invented one, but when was it actually in use? You're really getting into like the 1870s. So to me, it's kind of, do you want to say you're forward looking and somebody's really got the money to invest? Because it was there, but not hardly anybody was using it yet.
Yeah,
Right.
sort of like new cars. I mean, it's one of those things of if you're modeling a specific era, it's like, oh, or I'm modeling 1950s. You wouldn't have 1950s cars on there. You would have more of the 1940 cars and all that, because especially on the beginning of the decade, not many people have gotten to, you might have one or two cars just to go, like, oh yes, that's, sort of like timestamp the era. But most of the car, I mean, how many used cars are still on the road even
You
today?
know, I hadn't thought about that before. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep. That's a very good point, Ed. Just because it's 1950s doesn't mean that you're limited to seeing things that were in the 1950s. Yeah, exactly. I think, and to Walter's point, the beauty of the modeling is you could do prototype, you could do freelance, or you could do a freelance prototype like DC's doing. So you can pretty much justify anything you want, and yeah, to show older equipment and what have you, that I think that just builds the attraction for the period that you're seeing, that whoever's doing the modeling is really trying to step back into that point in time and show you what most likely would have been seen then. That's the juice for me. It's like, wow. Yeah.
And I read somewhere, somebody was saying also how if you have like a really piece of old equipment, put that in like a train museum at a park or a train station where they're showing it off. So if it's a 1950 station, show a piece of 1830 equipment and just, have it on display there.
Right.
You can still show your cool stuff.
Yep. In our club, we have a little room that's dedicated to a museum, and a couple of guys have collected all kinds of stuff because we model the 1850s of Jersey Central, and he's got stuff from the 1940s, 1950s, lanterns, all kinds of stuff, and it's very cool. Most people going in there don't even know what the heck they're looking at, but it's certainly appealing because you can see it's historic, not architecture, but it's historic equipment.
Now, how do they do switching on strap rails?
Right.
Because I mean, I'm thinking it's like, maybe having, sort of like a siding that's that they never modernized and all that, and have at least, a switch on there just to show what, what it is and all that, sort of like have it slightly overgrown and all that, but
Yeah.
maybe one half still slightly being used by something.
I don't have a definitive answer for you, Ed, but it seems to me that if the strap is attached to the timbers, that you'd have timbers that move right or left.
It'd be sort of like a stub switch, but you'd be using wood instead of the metal.
Yeah, yeah.
My
Then-
guess is that they would have left that, and then if they, because back when that was first created, I think it was only a single track. It was going from point A to point B. And then when the whole idea of switching came in, my guess is they would have created the thing that included the frog, the classic turnout.
There is some, I've seen an early drawing of the B&O Railroad, and there wasn't siding during that time period. So
With a strap,
more research is, yeah, but it's a drawing, and that wasn't a detail you could look into.
right? Oh, you couldn't?
No,
Oh,
no, not from the drawing, but.
okay.
um,
So you'll
but the
research
early
that,
B&O used stone sleepers.
right?
With strap rail. That's what they originally used. Of course, they also envisioned a road where you'd, like a toll road, where you would, you'd pay your toll and you'd drive your cart on the, or wagon on the road. Drawn
So
by
you'll
a horse.
you'll research that strap rail turnout for us for next time.
Oh, touche, Tom, touche.
I mean, I got a list of stuff here. The least you can do is take on one thing, for crying out loud. Cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't know where to start, and that's why I'm sort of appreciating that this group is, because where, oh, I need to find this and it's over here and all that, where I'm like going like, I don't know where to start, because sometimes the some of the terminology is so generic, like switch, and then all of a sudden you get a whole big of all the electrical switches from Alibaba, instead of going like, no, I'm not looking for that,
So, right, I get it. Well, gentlemen, DC, do you want to stay with the group and talk some more, or you guys? I mean, I can't
That's
believe.
up to you guys.
that's
Oh,
either
shoot.
way for me.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot, I gotta go. I do have somebody I have to go to too. Oops, got a client. Okay.
Yeah,
Had a great fun. See y'all later.
there, Walter.
All right, gentlemen, take care.
Take care.
All right.
Good to see
Yeah,
you all.
thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good.
Thanks, Tom.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Cheers.